Let's start with the budget. Are we in trouble?
We can see that structurally this isn't working. We're going further into debt. But if we think about it, we're getting physically sicker, we're getting mentally sicker, we're getting older, our infrastructure's getting older, and those at a very high level should be enough for us to go, wow, that's quite scary.
So what should we do?
Introducing Luke Kemeys, the People's Accountant and the host of Keep the Change podcast. With a passion for simplifying finance, Luke is on a mission to empower Kiwis to take control of their money and their future. As the co-founder of Next Advisory, he's worked with thousands of New Zealanders, demystifying financial decisions and unlocking real-world results.
I think one of the reasons that people are struggling is because we haven't been honest with them. To go back to the budget says that over the next 4 years, house prices are going to increase by 6%, 6% the next year, 6% the year after that, and 6% the year after that. Like, we don't want that to happen. That's bad. Like, all that does is leave people further behind. Your wages are only going to increase by 2.5% to 2.6%. So your house price is going up twice as fast as what your wage is. Well, why would I work? I could just have more property or more assets. And so this feels broken.
This podcast is brought to you by Ethos Mortgages. If you're looking to buy your first home, next home, or even an investment property, make sure you reach out to Ethos Mortgages at ethosmortgages.co.nz. We'll have a link below as well. Just a quick note, this podcast is for education and entertainment purposes only. If you need financial advice, please make sure you contact a financial advisor to get professional advice. Tala flava, I'm Willie Liotza, and welcome to the Fresh Money Podcast, where we talk about all things money. And today we have an amazing guest on the show. He's an accountant, but anything but boring. He is the host of the amazing Keep the Change podcast, and he has his own accounting practice. He's the co-founder of Next Advisory. Is that right? And welcome to the show, Luke Kemeys.
Thanks for having me, mate. It's good to be here, and well done with what you're working on, and the people that you're helping as well. I think we're all having a crack together, and it's good to see people hungry to learn.
Yeah, big time. No, thank you. Let's start with the budget. That was announced yesterday.
Yeah.
What are some of your kind of early thoughts? Are we in trouble?
Yeah, it's always hard to figure out because those budgets become so political, right? And I guess it's probably, if we think about it individually, like a budget shouldn't be like that. It should be simple, and we know the direction we're going in. But I think when you don't know the direction you're going in, it's then hard to know, are we doing the right things? And I think we can all think about that individually, but then at a government level and at a national level, like often I'll go around the country speaking and I'll say, hands up if you know what the goals of New Zealand are. No one puts their hand up. If you know where we're going, what the vision is, no one puts their hand up. So it's very hard to set a budget when we don't know what that is. And I think realistically, what I've learned is that politicians are normally, their job is to get re-elected. So you've got to try and balance people voting for you with the money that they have to play with as well. So some of the big changes, I guess, that we saw is that National was saying, well, we're not saving enough for retirement, therefore we want you to contribute 4% of your pay and your employer to contribute 4% too. Now, I actually think that's really good because I agree, whether it's National, Labour, whoever said that, I would be agreeing yes, because from what I see out there, people don't have enough set aside for retirement. So by saying to people, hey, we want you to put more in, that's going to get us in the right direction. So sometimes with these big changes, if we call that big, I think, what does it mean for the next generation? What does it mean for the kids who currently aren't thinking about it? It's easy for us to get worried about a change because we understand it in the here and now. But someone's just entering the workforce at 15, 16, 17. If we're saying you now need to put a third more into your KiwiSaver, that's going to have a big impact by the time they get to buying their first home or retirement. So we've basically said you've got to increase your KiwiSaver contributions by 33% from 6% up to 8%. So that realistically is a pretty big change.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. So, a budget, like, why should we care about it if it doesn't really affect us today?
Well, I suppose it all affects us in some way, right? Because if we think about it, like one of the largest spends in there is superannuation. So that is paying for people to have effectively a universal basic income from 65. So a set amount, and you get to 65 and you qualify it. We don't means test that or anything like that. But I think our generation and the younger groups are open to having that conversation and looking at capital gains taxes and things like that to go, how is this going to work? Because I think we can see that structurally this isn't working. We're going further into debt. You got Nationals saying, Labor were reckless with spending. Well, I believe that they're actually going to be spending more than what Grant Robertson was going to be spending.
Really?
Yeah. So someone might fact check me on that, but their budget is now higher than what Grant's was. But then they'll say, well, but as a percentage of GDP, it stays about the same. And you just go, you've lost me,
Yes.
But if we think about it, we're getting physically sicker, we're getting mentally sicker, we're getting older, our infrastructure's getting older, we have an infrastructure deficit, and those at a very high level should be enough for us to go, wow, that's quite scary. Where's that money going to come from? And I think we're seeing a lot of younger people at the moment go, I can't see a way forward for myself here, therefore I'm going to go to Australia and have a crack over there. But those are some pretty heavy and expensive hurdles that we have as a country to face. And I believe that the millennials will probably be the generation that go, righto, like, what are we going to do about this? Because you've got too many people that are older that don't want change, or sort of say, we need change and I can see it now, but let's just wait a little bit. Why should I miss out? I've been waiting to get to 65 or whatnot, or why, and there's arguments for and against all this stuff, right? Like, so if you've saved well your whole life and you've got a couple of rental properties, well then, hey, I've done the right thing. I've provided for myself. Why should I not get superannuation? Well, the argument is, well, you don't need it. But then the argument would be, well, why don't I get it? So
as well.
Very, very tough, but I don't think we're there yet to have those conversations. But it impacts all of us, because the more debt that we put into the system, the house prices become more expensive, things become more expensive. We put more burden on the future generations. But then the argument is, well, we have a low amount of debt as a country, so don't worry about it. But I think we did a good experiment through the pandemic where we basically just said, right, let's put heaps of debt into the system, and then let's just see what happens. And now on the other side of it was sort of like, wow, that inflation wasn't great. Yeah. Wow, we've got a lot more debt. Wow, now it's $9 billion a year to pay the interest bill on that debt.
Crazy.
Wow, we still haven't done the infrastructure stuff that we needed to do. Wow, we've gone further into debt. Wow, people are leaving New Zealand. And, it's easy to sit here and paint the negative of all of this, but, I think a government's not a good example of where we should be looking to get guidance on what we should do with our finance.
Yeah. Nice. So what should we do?
Well,
like in this economy, like how do you see it? Like, are people struggling out there?
Definitely. Yeah. And I think one of the reasons that people are struggling is because we haven't been honest with them. So to give you to go back to the budget says that over the next 4 years, house prices are going to increase by 6%. 6% the next year, 6% the year after that, and 6% the year after that. Yeah. Like, we don't want that to happen. That's bad. Like, all that does is leave people further behind. And then wage inflation, so basically your wages are only going to increase by 2.5% to 2.6%. So your house price is going up twice as fast as what your wage is. So if you don't have
what's that going to encourage?
Exactly, yeah. Well, why would I work? I could just have more property or more assets. And so then we've got like these pent up young entrepreneurial and like fierce people who are like, I want to get out there and I want to make a go of this. And then they see house prices running away on them and they go, this feels broken. Why? But you can't make sense of that, right? Like, how is that happening? How come I'm working so hard and I can't buy a house or I can't have the things that I want? So I think we've not, I don't want to say like we've lied to people, but I think what's happened in my lifetime is that we've gone from an industrial type, like hard manufacturing. I watched my granddad work hard, my stepdad work hard.
Yeah, wow.
And they would like just sort of get by, or there was enough for us. But the world changed where we moved to, a tech and info-based economy, and we haven't transitioned Kiwi people to seeing the opportunity there. Yeah. So as an example, I have a client who teaches people internationally how to train their pets. And he does that from New Zealand and teaches people all around the world how to train your dog, how to train your cat. And he earns good money. Crazy. And he does this from New Zealand. He's effectively an exporter, and it's all done online via online services. And Kiwi people are some of the most creative, smartest, and like humblest people. But the problem with that is that we can't see the value that we have. So this person can see that they could train people internationally and become a top income earner and a value creator as a global exporter outside of New Zealand. But a lot of us are like, oh, nah, it can't be me. So then we default back into the hard industrial type, I'll do the hard work, I'm working hard, why am I not getting ahead? Well, I'll do a bit of overtime. Okay, now you're getting taxed at 33%, so you only get 67% of it. Well, do I actually want to do that, or should I stay at home? So I think the world's changed from like hard work works to basically we need to teach more people how to be valuable and do valuable things and then price that correctly, and you can make more money than you think is possible, but it's very hard to see that until you see other people doing it, and I think we've left a lot of Kiwi people behind.
Because we actually don't have that much of a culture when it comes around to starting, creating online businesses, do we? Compared to the rest of the world.
Well, even I'm going out there all the time being like, you need to increase your income. You need to find ways to make more money. People are like, mate, I don't want to hear that. It's quite confronting and it's sort of like, well, it's easy for you to say and whatnot, but that's just what I figured out, that if the government and the central banks and money's going to become worth less and things and assets are going to become worth more expensive, one of the answers is to make more money. Sure, one of the simple answers is to review your budget and cut out the subscriptions and whatnot, but that only takes you so far. Then you go, oh, I did that and I'm still sort of here and I still want more. Well, you got to increase your income. And I guess I bring a different blend to the financial literacy conversation because being an accountant, I try and take the business principles and show individuals like, hey, you can do this stuff too. And it might be selling stuff around the house. It might be monetizing a skill. It might be knocking on 10 doors in your neighborhood and saying, hey, would you like me to clean your gutters for you because you're older, you can't get on there and do that, but I can see water dripping out and it's $150. All of a sudden you get paid $150 for an hour and you go, well, hang on. I thought I was $30 an hour. Like in my job, I get paid $30.
Exactly.
What just happened there? Wait, what do you mean? Like how someone just paid me $150? And then all this like, oh, this is a low wage economy. Then you're like, well, I can't believe that anymore because that person just paid me $150 and they referred me to the neighbor. And then like you go on your journey. So I think I'm trying to plant like little seeds around that stuff to help people see what could maybe, they could maybe do or what their value could be. And then they choose like how far they push that.
Yeah, nice. KiwiSaver. Everyone's taking a bit of a haircut. What's your take? Good? Bad?
Yeah, I love it because it forces people to save. Now, as much as we like to think, well, I can look after myself and I'll do my own investing and whatnot, you're not going to. I started investing 20 years ago now, but when I say started investing, I was buying shares and then selling them 2 weeks later, thinking I was going to get rich.
Penny stocks.
Yeah. Or even Auckland Airport, and they would go down a little bit. I'm like, I better sell them. What's happening? I don't know what I was doing, but I was learning. But really, investing in New Zealand at a retail level has only really taken off in this sort of last 8 years when some of these platforms have come in. The beautiful thing about KiwiSaver, once you contribute, you're going to get advice from your KiwiSaver provider, you're going to get emails from them, you're going to get education, you're going to pay more attention to investing, and we actually increase the understanding of investing and money through all of those KiwiSaver providers. So even with investing, if you want to get into it but you don't think you've got any money, I'm like, invest $1. Because it's no different.
Exactly.
You've still got to transfer the money. You've got to pick the stock or you've got to pick the fund. I'm like, the learning journey is exactly the same between $1 and 100 or 10,000 or whatever, right? And so if you're not going to learn about it here, what makes you think you're going to learn about it at 100, 1,000, $10,000 or whatnot? So something I see all the time is people come into money and they go, hey, like, where should I invest? And it's like, you probably needed to be learning about that before because now you're at risk of someone ripping you off, making the wrong decision, all of these things. So yeah, I'm a big fan of KiwiSaver because as a financial advisor explains to me, the beautiful thing about the design of it is it protects us from ourselves. So what that means is once it's in there, we basically can't touch it. Yep. And the number one rule of compounding is don't touch it and let it compound. But much like me, when I started investing as a young fella, I would touch it. And I would oh, okay, it's gone up 30%. Bang, I better take it out. And then I'm like, I look back and go, oh, I brought Fisher and Paykel at $250. They're $30 a share now. What was I thinking? But you don't know, But the beauty of KiwiSaver is it sort of brings you...
Is it because you haven't had that time in it?
Yeah, 100%.
Like you haven't seen that it just keeps going. The general curve goes up. You see the graph before you buy them. But you don't know how that graph's going to continue.
Exactly. Yeah, I brought A2 Milk, which is a pretty well-known-ish company in New Zealand now. I brought them at 10 cents when I was at university. They went to 40. I thought I was like, I could go work at JB Ware. Like, sign me up. I'll advise them. Yep. And then they went to 80 cents. I'm like, oh, okay. I sold at 40. And then they went to 30 or 20-something dollars. So if I kept my 10 cents right through to $26, I would have a lot more money than I do right now. But I probably wouldn't have because at $10, I probably would have been like, mate, I got to this has gone too far. I've got to take some out. Yes. And then I would have seen them go to 15. I'd be like, oh, maybe I should get back in. So it's really easy with finance to look at something and go, oh, this is the decision I would have made. Yeah. But
true.
That's not what happens. Yeah. We make the decision with the information that we have at the time. And that's part of it is understanding that we always have incomplete information. I brought some shares in Sky City based on the theory that, well, the house always wins. And therefore, that's a business I want to invest in because they never lose. Well, then we went into lockdown a month later. I'm like, oh, seriously? But then that business has just been killed since. Like, their share price has just come down massively. So my simple thesis, incorrect. So you can like get the stuff wrong, and that's why a lot of the advice is invest into funds or let someone do it for you, and that's what your KiwiSaver provider is there to do for you. Take all of that thinking away and go, we're gonna, based on your risk tolerance, we're gonna put your money to work in here, there, or wherever. So I would suggest getting advice around that as well, so you can learn through the process. Interesting data from the Reserve Bank. So a simple way to understand this: we're all paying interest to the bank in some way, shape or form, right? Yep. The Reserve Bank, who kind of govern all the banks in New Zealand, they track that. So they track how much are all the banks paying to them, and they put it into a graph per quarter. And basically, as the official cash rate increases, all of us pay more interest, and then as it drops, then we start paying less. But remember, there's a massive lag because then our loans roll off and then they get refixed. Yeah, well, the March quarter in 2025 is the first quarter that it's actually decreased. So it peaked in December, and so that's the maximum quarter where we paid the most amount to the Reserve Bank or on behalf of all the banks, and now it's slowly dropped.
Yeah,
and this back half of the year, more people are going to have more in their back pocket. And I think all of us need to be thinking, if we're refinancing debt, like, what am I going to do with that difference? Because I had a good example yesterday where someone said, we're going to end up with $800 more in our back pocket per month. We went and ran the calculation on keeping the payment the same and living the same lifestyle. We're going to clear our debt 17 years faster.
Yeah, wow.
You know? And again, that's not something that's well taught. It's like, your loan's 30 years. Okay, that's the product. With a loan, we fall into this default of like, oh, they told me it was 30 years to pay it off, therefore it's 30 years. Yep. But I say to people, with increasing income as an example, I say, well, you've got to get excited about it. It's got to mean enough to you. So you might say, well, what's $100 a week? Well, okay, it's $5,200 a year, but let's go and have a look at clearing our mortgage $100 faster per week. Oh, that's going to save me 7 years. Yeah, do you mean I'm not going to pay the bank for 7 years at the back end? Yes. Okay. Maybe it is worth making an extra $100 a week. What are you going to do in that 7 years? You might invest, you might travel, you're not going to have stress of the debt repayments going out. So I think we need to retell the importance of understanding some of the stuff at the front end to save some people some time at the back end.
Do you think that people have to go through a bit of pain before they actually start using their money properly? Because like when rates were at 2.99%, everyone was feeling good. Like the economy was like, everyone was kind of just happy to be alive, happy that their rates were so low, and they borrowed more to increase the size, to buy another house or to complete renovations.
Yeah. Oh, but I did. Like, I ended up with a $15,000 credit card with 13 grand of it, costing me interest, and that was sort of my moment of like, I should know better, I need to tidy this up. And I think pain's a really good teacher for us, and we don't like to admit it, but it's very hard with money. And so, often when we get sick, we're like, okay, I need to address this, and we wait for it to get really bad, and then we go, I don't know if this is going to get better, I'm off to the doctor or whatnot. And I think blokes are really bad at it too. We sort of go, oh, wait another week,
I'll be fine.
Excuse me. So I think pain's a really good teacher in that space, but it's a little bit like that saying, everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the nose, right? And I think that's what happened with interest rates going up. For so long, we had this interest rate declining and decreasing, and people got comfortable with, debt's getting cheaper, it's always going to be like this. And then all of a sudden it was like, inflation's here, bang, here's the punch in the nose, we're going to jack these rates up. And people were like, whoa, what's all this about? And what do you mean unemployment? What do you mean my job's at risk and the economy's contracting in a recession?
All of the above.
So, sometimes we need that pain. And the beautiful thing though is you can learn before the pain. So good story from yesterday, guy reached out to me, teacher, and loves his job, very good at what he does, goes above and beyond. Anyway, has a bit of an internal rift and basically gets pushed out, loses his job. And he said to me, one of the best things about the content that I've been consuming from you is that I know how to deal with this period, not just financially, but mentally.
Awesome.
And I think, I really like a story like that, because often people come to Keep the Change or financial literacy and they're like, where's my quick wins? Where's the silver bullets? Yeah. But a lot of it is mindset and even just going on the journey. And much like me repaying my credit card, it's like, this is going to suck for 26 fortnights and I'm not going to be able to do anything and I've got to pay back my sins. But you need the pain to teach you. And then you have that reference point of, I don't want to go back there. But this bloke was basically like, I knew that it wouldn't help me to go, how could this happen to me? How could they treat me like this? Bugger teaching, I'm over this, I'm never going to do this again. And basically they were able to kind of get themselves through it with some mental resilience.
Yeah, nice.
And they had the education before getting to the pain. I think a lot of us get the pain and then we go, what do I do?
Find out.
Yeah. So, I think pain is a good teacher, and I definitely see it teaching a lot of us with finance and almost, people going, I won't do that again. So, they might have get caught out with the cheap interest and putting the pool on the mortgage or the overseas holiday or whatnot, or never having any emergency funds because the economy is going so good, and then bang, you lose the job or something changes or someone in your household loses it.
Some sort of shock that hits you.
And then all of a sudden this idea of, a emergency fund, you're like, oh, okay, I can get on board with that.
Yeah.
Maybe let's build that up.
Yeah, true. No, that's awesome. Thanks for your insights and all of that. But yeah, tell me whereabouts you're from.
Yeah, so I grew up in Dannyburg.
Oh, nice. Danny Vegas.
I haven't been back for some time, which is a bit of a shame. But
what was life like growing up in Dannyburg?
Yeah, I loved it. It's a great town. I think I'm more of like a regional New Zealander.
Yeah, cool.
I came to Auckland because of the opportunity, and I could see, obviously accounting and economics, I could see that this is the economic hub. And I think it is responsible for about 40% of New Zealand's GDP in Auckland. Oh, wow. And I just thought, well, I need to get around that movement of money, those businesses, the economy, and things will happen. But every time I get out of Auckland, I was like, oh man, this is epic. So
relaxing.
Yeah, so I did, upbringing in Dannyburg. I would bus over every day to Palmerston North Boys High School.
Good school.
Great school,
Good
mate.
school.
Yeah, went back recently too, and just got to speak at assembly, which was great.
Good man.
But that set me up really well because I would have to bus over an hour a day, hour there, hour back. Excuse me.
Wow.
Yeah, so I've been doing a long day since, 12, 11. I think I was 12 when I might have been 11 when I was, anyway, 12, probably 12. Yeah, and then I would come home and I'd be like, well, there's a bit of daylight left. I got to go deliver some pamphlets. Jump on my BMX and smash that out, collect a bit of cash, and then, graduate to the Foursquare, go work in the Foursquare, learn some customer skills, learn a bit of interacting with people, and then go, right, what's the next step? Into the freezing works, work on the slaughter board, work there and be like, I can't do this, man. This is not for me, man. This is scary. This is crazy.
It is, It's dangerous.
Oh, mate, it was just not me. And so then I go to uni, and I have this reference point of don't bugger this up. Because I can't do that life. I don't think I can do no disrespect, but people, that's just not for me. And so, and then at university, I went to Palmy Boys, and then at 17, so that's when I was at the freezing works, but then I moved to Palmerston North, go to uni there from 17, so out onto my own, living with a couple mates, straight into flatting, cooking for ourselves, keeping the house warm, paying bills and stuff. You're in the deep end, right? Drinking too much. But I'd always earn good money. But then getting to uni, I had this all the shackles were off, and it was maybe start gambling, maybe start drinking. Maybe start ticking some stuff up. How does the world work? So I probably learned a lot of bad stuff, or I had bad financial habits then.
Okay.
And then
what did you study, and did you always know you were going to head into the numbers kind of space?
No, well, I really liked economics and accounting at school, and I learned about investing, with fake money, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy, this is...
So at school they would have games where you'd go through scenarios and pretend to buy shares.
Yes. Yeah, and kind of track it over a term or whatever. And I was like, whoa, there's something here. And I think that's where my interest, and I'd already been earning some money doing paper run and whatnot. I'm like, I'm going to do this for real. Yeah, so I'm like, Mum, you need to sign me up to the share platform thing, and you got to co-sign it because I'm not 18. And bang, I've put my first $5,000 into Auckland Airport, at 16, 17. And then it's just a trade history of buy, sell, $30 a fee every time. Just going back to broke, and then treating it like a savings account. But I thought, like, if I'm honest, I thought, well, if I become an accountant, I'll make good money. It looks like they make good money. Then I'll be able to do the share thing on the side, and then I won't have to do the accounting as I do more of the investing. That's kind of the journey that I'm on. But I've then found work that I enjoy doing, and now I probably do 60 hours a week of accounting and various business coaching and stuff, and really enjoy it, and just selective of what I do. But I also worked in a distribution centre in Palmerston North alongside university, and I've always earned good money, but I've always blown all of it. And I think it's like easy come, easy go, but also, you know, when you have more than you need and you're not directing it at a goal, well, it finds its way behind the bar of a pub, you know, into a pokie machine, into a trip away, like whatever, you know, and you can find a way to rinse it. And then I was like, okay, well, then I got my first sort of accounting job outside of university, earning good money, could save more, and was like, bang, a big jump up from what I've been on at uni.
Yeah, awesome. What was your first job?
I was in auditing, So I was, and
who for?
So Audit New Zealand. Yeah,
Wow.
So you sort of go into councils and different entities and audit them. But again, like I was like, man, I don't seem like I fit in here. This is not really suited with my personality, but a great training ground.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, you could travel away. And each night you're away, you got $65 allowance, and it was tax free. I'm like, yo, send me anywhere. Like, and you mean like if I take my car, I get a reimbursement.
Yeah.
So I've always sort of been like looking at ways to. And I was selling feijoas when I was 17 out of my out of our first flat.
So
and
you
making
always
good
had
money.
that kind of entrepreneurial. You were never going to work for someone else.
Yeah.
Like,
and even at Audit New Zealand, we'd do annual training, and this lady said to me and a few others, pulled us aside. And honestly, like, this is one of the best training grounds. Like, we learned how to speak to people and hold yourself, talk to a CEO. It was crazy, like how much money they invested in their staff. And she said, hey, like, you guys aren't going to make it here. And I'm like, whoa, does she know that we went out on the piss last night? Like, what's going on here? You know?
did she see us?
Yeah, I'm like, whoa, okay. And I'm like, oh, what do you mean? Like, no, we love it. And she's basically like, look, I've been doing this training for a number of years, and, you know, you guys are sort of the personality that you're probably not going to fit into this environment longer term, and maybe you can't see it. And she was right, man. Like, we all four of us were like first to leave our year group, gone, off into something else. But so then I sort of got into public practice or general accounting, and I found my feet in there, and ended up in Hawera in Taranaki.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I've sort of done a lot of time in regional New Zealand as such, and then I packed up my car and I was like, I need to get to Auckland and just see what's happening up there.
Yeah, cool.
And had my cat in the front seat and loaded up my shit in the back, and that's all the assets that I had. And I had a house in Hawera at this stage, and then I was driving to Auckland crying, being like, what am I doing? And then I'm like, oh, let's get stuck in. Come the Thursday, I'm stuck in traffic for 40 minutes. I'm crying again, being like, what a dick. What is this city? It takes 40 minutes to get to work, and then you have to pay for parking. I'm like, this is shit.
And the parking isn't cheap.
Yeah.
Like, it's not cheap parking compared to the region.
Mate, I was working in Parnell. I'm like, man, like, who are these people? Where are these Ferraris around here? Like, what is going on? And I'm like, buying my lunch and stuff. So anyway, I sort of eventually left there and started a business. And part of it, like, I'd done entrepreneurial things throughout my journey. I'm probably 26 by this stage, maybe 27, maybe.
Okay.
And I liken it to, I often say that I said to my boss, you know, I was like, I have to go, mate. Like, this is a great job, but I got to get out there and I just got to have a crack at some of the things that are inside of me.
What made you leave? Because there's a lot of people that are there by, you know, these golden handcuffs. There's a lot of perks. You know, you get a lot of things paid for. There's bonuses, and there's that regular salary fortnightly that comes in.
Well, I wasn't stuck to a mortgage, so that helped. I knew that I could move home if everything didn't go well, but also probably overly optimistic and confident in myself. So I was sort of like, I'll go out there, I'll build a business. It takes 6 months. Let's roll, baby. Like, this can't be that hard. I got out there, I'm like, holy shit, man. What is this jungle? You know? And I went backwards, and I did have to move home, and I would drive in from their place, hour 40 in the traffic. But I would use all these things, you know, sit in this traffic in the dark and be like, I can't do this forever, man. Like, I've got to make this work. And, you know, my mate, I was doing it alongside a mate. He was starting his thing, and he ended up moving home to my parents as well. Yeah. My parents are very supportive, and they're just kind of like, right, look at these two dickheads, you know, starting again in their late 20s, you know, thinking they're going to conquer the world.
Very supportive.
Yeah, but we've both gone on to do great. And I think having somebody alongside you and seeing how hard you're each working, and just a bit of a pep talk when it's not going well, like, I owe Ben a lot of gratitude, my good mate, because we're sort of there for each other, and just sort of like we would go for
how important is you know, to have a buddy, a partner there when you're co-founding something?
Oh, massively, mate. And that's not my business partner, but I'll come back to that. Yeah. But yeah, massively. And I think we all, even with any financial journey, like if you can share why it is that you're doing it, what it is, and you can like have a two-way sort of convo and jazz each other up, but not sort of be like, we got this, like, let's get it hand. Like, nah, like, what are we actually doing? Yes. You know, it's really, really important.
Practical.
Yeah, because I think we do need to share some of the things that we're thinking about and get, you know, and like sometimes we get low and we need someone just to give us like one tidbit and it's like, right, we go again, you know. So I had been alongside me, then my business partner as well, and I probably just underestimated like how hard it was going to be or how long it was going to take.
Yep.
But I just drilled my brain with like motivational content of sort of hardest worker in the room, just stuff where I'm like, I know I don't understand what's happening, but I know I need to keep going. Yeah. And if I keep going, and if I can do this for 5 or 10 years, like life will be sweet. This just sucks, and I want to be at the 5 and the 10-year mark now, but that's not how it works. And so you just got to go through the grind. So I was driving, like to speak to a client. Like eventually I made a bit of money, and I would go like live in someone's sleep out and whatnot.
Is this next?
When I'm accounting at this stage, Okay. And so like I'm like trying to win clients and bring clients on, and I would like drive to Mangarewa and have like a client meeting at 7 o'clock at night, and then drive home, and then like come on, like send the engagement letter. They wouldn't sign it. I'm like, damn it. So like what is happening? And you just have
all those no's.
Yeah, man. But man, it's so good for you. And I mean, very
like
lucky.
How hard is it to come back in those early days from disappointment?
Yeah, it does knock you around, but you just have to like have a bit of an iron mind and accept that you're not going to get yeses, and there is heaps of rejection. But there's a saying like the best teacher is adversity, or you'll never meet a better sparring partner than adversity. You know, and it's like, man, we should all relate to that, and that's the reality of life, and we should lean into that. And so what I started to do is like when it would happen, I'd be like, oh, boom, like another no, let's roll, baby. Like, at least I did everything I said I was going to do, you know?
Nice.
And then the win's got to be coming. And I would start to go into situations more confident as well. But you have to expect that you're going to get no's. It's going to be hard. Yep. And I still get them, but you just become a bit more like resilient to them. Yeah. Yep. But interesting, once you start doing well, like you have this sort of confidence swag that changes because you're not desperate anymore. You don't need things. Like the world starts bringing you more stuff, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I don't need. Because
you don't look, you don't sound like the desperate guy anymore. Right?
Yeah. So like we turn away more work than we say yes to now. Like that's the stage that we're at. But like that was real weird to do that, and even I'm like, I have to try and explain to them like why I can't. Yeah,
should I call them back?
Yeah, and people are like, oh, okay, well, like that's strange. Like it's not what most businesses are like, but that's just the business that we've built. So yeah, it's great if you can get yourself there, but even if you can feel like that through it, because the danger of whatever we're doing is we look for quick wins or things that our gut tells us like, don't do that. It might be like multi-level marketing or something that we know deep down, like, do I really want to be doing that? Like, did I see myself doing that? Or is it just the quick win? Should I maybe just clean the neighbor's gutters instead for 150? Or, and so you've got to try and like figure out and navigate through like what really sits well with me so that I've got energy to keep doing it.
Yeah, awesome. If you're serious about buying your first home, make sure you check out the First Home Buyers Masterclass. In this masterclass, we take you through the whole home buying journey, from getting pre-approved, finding your property, to settling. This will take out a lot of the confusion and make your home buying journey a lot easier. Make sure you check out the link below for our masterclass. Tell me a bit about the school rebates. Like, was that part of you kind of giving back to...
So that was the first business that I had a go at, and that was when I quit my job. I was like, right, we're going to have a go at this, but I was also doing like some other little things as well. But I was flying back down to Palmerston North to see family, and this guy on the plane said to me that he'd just been doing his donation rebate claim. And what that means is that a lot of us pay school fees, but there's a donation portion to the school. If you pay that donation portion, often you can get a third of that back as a rebate, and you can go back 4 years. He was saying to me, like, it's so hard to do. And I said, mate, it's just a paper form, and then you attach the receipts and you're done. Like, it's literally the easiest part of the New Zealand tax system. And he said, no, it's hard. If there was an electronic way to do it, that would be epic. And so I'm like, whoa, hang on. Entrepreneurial mind is like, well, is there an opportunity here? So then I start Googling, like what's the value of donations to schools and stuff. And so
interesting.
There's millions of dollars every year that goes unclaimed. I might go back to my job, and this is where I've met my now business partner. And I'm like, mate, like I had this convo I reckon there's something here. And he's like, let's explore it. And so I built this with him, and like a website developer built this platform where people could come to, and they could basically fill out their kids' names, pick their school, and then attach their receipts, and we'd process their donations and pass them their money.
Yeah, wow.
But we get all this traffic to it, and then people are like, oh, I didn't even know you could do this. We're just going to do this ourselves. I'm like, oh man, like this. So we thought the problem was that people didn't want to do it because it was too hard. They didn't do it because they didn't know that they could. So we got the problem wrong. So we're left with, like, I often say,
So they just didn't know what they didn't know.
Yeah. So we're left with the 5% that are like, okay, this looks too hard. You guys just do it. But also, then most people are like, well, I don't have receipts because I didn't know that I could claim this. So why would I have kept the receipts?
Gotcha.
So then we build a database at every school in New Zealand, and you ping off a request. So then I piss off 2,500 admin staff around the country. Who are you? I'm not going and getting these old receipts out. You've got no right. I'm like, actually, you're legally obligated to hand those over. So you can't not do it. They're like, you're an arsehole. I'm like, maybe. But these people want to get their money back. So we refunded $1 million to Kiwi parents.
Holy moly.
Yeah, and educated a whole
insane.
stack of parents to go and do it. As we started rolling on it too, it became evident like why the big tax refund companies weren't doing it, because it was too hard. So it's like that was probably the data of like, hey, if this is such a big opportunity, why aren't they doing it? But when you're young and like naive and sort of getting going, like business doesn't work out the way you think it will, but you navigate it, then you're like, okay, spot that, bank that lesson for future. The IRD come along and they're like, if this works, we're going to build this infrastructure into my IR. You guys are done. Like, oh, okay, thanks. Yeah, great. And we've got to pay for our own lunch for that convo? Yeah, sweet. Okay, great. And we're like, well, there goes our business. And so alongside that, we took a lot of the lessons and started building out Next Advisory, the accounting practice. And then we started with 0 clients, and we've now probably got about 130.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Wow. So it's not like, we're not competing with the big boys at top of town, but we're very, specific about who we take on. We do a lot of advisory work, so they might stay with their client, but we might take them through business planning over 90 days and help them get closer to their goals.
Yeah. How many staff do you...
So we've got a total of, there's 6 of us, and we're currently hiring for a senior accountant.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. You do a lot of, obviously, speaking in schools, like you said, events. Is that been something that you do easily? Like, do you enjoy it? Do you enjoy speaking in front of people?
Yeah, I do. And I won a speech competition when I was at primary school. And like I can still see the photo.
Really?
From being in the newspaper.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where you, looking back now, you can figure it out. And I won it, and one of the judges or something said to Mum, like, he needs to do more of this.
Yeah, cool.
And then I didn't do debating at school, high school or whatever. I was like, I'm not doing that, debating. But like if we had to speak, I'm like, okay, a 3-minute speech. Now you can't shut me up for 3 minutes, You'd be like, 3 minutes, that's crazy. But I didn't seem to mind it. And then as I got into chartered accounting study, you have to do group stuff and presentations, and I'd still get nervous, and I'd be like, well, just lean into it, mate. Like I'll be like, okay, I can present on it. You guys do all the hard work. I'll do the presenting bit. And you just,
normally everyone goes, I'll do the work. Someone do the presenting.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll be that guy. Yeah.
Nice.
And I've got about 60 grand worth of speaking booked in for this calendar year. Yeah, the goal is to do 100, and I think I'll get there.
Man.
Yeah. But that's like, 12-year-old boy, and then like out of it, and then like, okay, I know there's something here, I could be doing it. But and when I quit my job, I think I was getting paid 80K. So, to make 80 grand speaking is,
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
you've obviously identified something, like, and then you've put something in there to practice, like, I suppose, what am I asking? I suppose like how you've practically put something in place to help you get better at something you've identified when you were younger, that you or someone else went, hey, he's good at this.
Yeah.
He needs to do more of this.
Well, like, this gives me goosebumps thinking about, but like Richie Mo'unga, I think is a good example, right? Like I saw an example where he, before the game, he was kicking from a specific spot on the paddock, and he was visualizing winning the game from there. And he wins the game from there later in the game with about 3 minutes to go. I see that. I'm like, that should be the main story on the news. That should be like, this is Richie Mo'unga doing it. This can work. Let's dig into that. Let's do a whole podcast on just that. Yeah. But it's kind of like, oh yeah, that's pretty crazy. Yeah. Like, anyway, what else happened in the game? But if you think about it, like, he didn't, like, I can't do that. I'm not allowed to go kick that winning like, hey, I'm in the crowd. Can I come kick the goal? It's like, no, bro, you haven't done the reps. You're not in the arena. Piss off. Like, we're gonna exit. We're gonna exit you if you get on this paddock, right? So why is he there? Well, because he did the reps, but he's still visualizing that he can do it, and then we're all clapping and sculling a beer when he does do it, right? And he wins the game. We're like, well, he's the GOAT. But like, how many reps did he do? But then how did he know to do those reps?
Yeah.
Like, he must have seen himself that he could be that person. And I think not enough of us like realize that these sports stars are doing this stuff. All these successful people, like, they have frameworks and they're leaving frameworks behind for us. And we're just sitting there in the crowd being like, oh, that's a mean kick.
Yeah. Wish I could do that.
Yeah. Or like, oh, I reckon I can. Then we go there on the Sunday and we're like, oh, actually, I can't do this. So, you know, what's that framework? Okay, he's still visualizing. He believes in himself, but he believed in himself at an earlier age. He then goes, well, they're not just going to put me in the All Blacks. I've got to do the work. I've got to do the training. I've got to do the reps. I've got to get noticed. I've got to actually know that I'm good, and that's okay. It's all good. Like, imagine if he said, like, imagine if he got the ball in that moment and he goes, oh, guys, can I just borrow the mic? Oh, I'm actually really scared. I don't know if I'll kick this. Everyone will be like, he should be booted out of the All Blacks for thinking like that. It's disgusting. It's a loser's mindset. It's like, we don't let them think like that. So then why do we do this stuff to ourselves? So hopefully that helps answer it in like a different way. But I think if people, you know, see where they want to be and then actually lean into that and believe in themselves and then do the reps and just, you know that if you outwork other people and are willing to do things that others aren't, then you can be that person and everybody will celebrate you in that moment and go, wow, like, how do they do that? But really for Richie and even for me doing the speaking, it starts like, you know, a decade ago.
Yeah, there is a framework and there is a process.
Yeah.
And if you're watching, if you're listening, if you're learning, you can apply that to whatever you want to do too.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Keep the Change. It's one of the most listened to financial podcasts in the country. What made you kind of start that and the newsletter too? Yeah,
well, it's actually 5 years yesterday since I started the newsletter. Yeah, so I would go home and I would kind of have conversations around the budget and politics and the economy and stuff with my parents, and we would always come back to the fact that people don't learn enough about financial literacy. And my stepmom sort of said, well, like, what are you going to do about it? You know, by this stage I'm getting some runs on the board and whatnot, and it's sort of like, well, then do something, mate.
That's the question, isn't it? If someone asks you that, you are then responsible to an answer. Or
I mean, I can keep arguing and saying that there should be more, but I'm like, okay,
if you do nothing about it.
Yeah, like, what can I do? Then we have this beautiful thing called lockdown where I'm in my apartment, this single bedroom apartment, looking out to the cruise ships leaving and stuff. And I'm like, well, what can I do in here with all this spare time? And I thought, well, people had started asking me about what's going to happen with the economy. I was trying to figure it out. Like, I'd been to Melbourne the weekend that before we sort of locked down, where they got COVID in Melbourne. I was on that last flight home before you might have to quarantine and stuff. And then I started feeling ill, and, you know, like, everybody at that time was like, whoa, what am I? But I was probably just had run down after being on a bender. So I like self-isolated myself, and then like we actually go into lockdown and whatnot. But I was already planning. I've got notes from like, okay, the world's going to shut down here. I'm like, okay, how am I going to get through this? Like, what's going on? I was just getting momentum with my accounting business. I'm like, this is bullshit, man. And even like wage subsidies and stuff came out, and I looked at those and I was like, we qualify for those, but we don't need them. I was like, I've seen this trap before, man. This was like my 15 grand credit card. I'm like, I don't need that, but I ended up 13 grand in debt to it. I'm like, I'm not going to take these. So my business partner and I had an interesting conversation of like, just because we can, should we? So we chose not to take a number of subsidies. And I was like, let's just make it harder for ourselves. Like, let's go, like, let's grind through this and just figure out what happens. And so, I don't know, it's probably a bit of a different mindset to a lot of people as well. But I then sort of thought, well, if I can unpack some of these thoughts and help other people learn, well then, like, I'd created content and stuff by now, and I've been through some iterations. I'm like, all that's going to happen, if I'm as good as I think I am at explaining some of these things, people are going to learn, they're going to take action, they're going to say thank you one day, I'm going to add heaps of karma, and I'm going to get mine.
Awesome.
It'll come back around. And I've kind of, lived by that principle throughout my life. Like, the more value you give, if you can give more than you get, then like good things will end up happening.
So good.
And so that's basically, I wrote a money mail 22nd of May 2020, and it was called Rich Arseholes, and it was basically like, okay, we talk about these rich people in New Zealand, but does that actually help us? Send that out to about 200 people. Today I've just sent one out. It's episode 263, I think, and I haven't missed a Friday. And that's gone out to 13,500 people, and then there's a LinkedIn database of around 8,500. I'll record it as an audio podcast. The podcast gets about 35 to 40 to 50,000 depending listeners per month, and then YouTube's just gone past 1 million downloads. So
insane.
Yeah, man, these things like take you on the podcast's about to go past 2 million audio downloads, YouTube 1 million, 1.1. But you go on these journeys, man, through it, and you meet different people, you get access to people, they like what you're doing, they say thank you, you get sent shit, like it's just, your life just completely changes, mate. It's real. You get invited to speak and they pay you $6,000. Like,
so good.
Yeah.
Man, congratulations.
Thank you.
That is awesome. All from starting, like having that first email.
Yeah, and they're not stopping, like consistency, you know. It's just like Richie, you know, he was good at kicking. He was like, I'll get better at it. You know, Bodie, D-Mac, all of them, right? Yep. The Warrior Boys, like all of these, you know, people, the top ones are very consistent at what they do, and they know that they're good at it, and so they carry on. And then, we all look at it and be like, oh, wow, that's pretty epic. But we don't see all the stuff that they're doing during the week.
Yeah, awesome. You've said money isn't good or bad. Can you explain that a bit?
Yeah, well, I think money gets a bad rap where we sort of, I guess a better way to explain this is, if you hold up a note, or if you look at the numbers on your screen in your internet banking, pull out your internet banking now, it doesn't say anxiety, it doesn't say depression, it doesn't say fight with your family, it doesn't say angry, there's no emotions written on any of this. So where does it come from? Well, it must come from us. So why does it cause so much anxiety, stress, worry, fights, arguments, division and stuff? Humans, like we do that. So money is a tool, nothing more, nothing less, is something that I learned. Just like this cup, you know, it can hold water and I can drink from it, or I can smash it over someone's head and, you know, maybe kill them. Like, is the cup bad? Is that like the tool? I'm not using the tool. You know, similarly with a basketball, I'm shit at basketball, but someone who's good at it, like, they're good with that tool, and they become, you know, somebody who's, you know, plays for their country or can make a lot of money doing that. I can't do that with that tool. So money is basically just a means of exchange, but we give it all this negative connotation and energy. And I think even just understanding that at the start of your money journey, you're like, oh yeah, I'd never thought of it like that. I can sort of, you know, I can like, take the notch down a little bit and be like, yeah, what is going on here? You know, like, why am I stressed about it? What is this? And then we can explore it better and then start to tidy it up if it's not serving us well. Interesting.
Why do you think that people get stressed about it? Like, is it lack of knowledge or understanding, or?
It's a hard one to pin to like one thing, right? But the more I've had to learn about money to then teach about it, you start coming across these things where when you're younger, like you're learning about money in a negative way through movies and through conversations or seeing your family struggle and whatnot. And so, you know, as an example, you might see your parents fight over money. Then you're like, money's bad.
Yeah.
Like they always fight when it comes
to this.
Yeah. So then you're like, I don't want that. Or then the society tells you like rich people are assholes. And you're like, I don't want to be rich. Like, oh, well, you come into money, like better give it away, you know? And we don't actually step back and like notice that this is happening to us, and then we just sort of get stuck without putting our own thinking into it. So I think it's sort of society. I think as well it's gotten more expensive, so it's frustrating. It's very like we look at what prior generations have had and we think, well, I can't achieve that. I don't want to be lectured by you, bro, that, you know, like all I got to do is drop the avocado or just work a bit harder or
it's different now.
Yeah. And so then we get frustrated and we're like, that's not helping me, man. You know, we had 18% interest rates. Cool, bro. Like, what? That's got nothing to do with me. You don't know how hard we had it. Well, actually, let's look at this. We've got way more debt per individual. We've got more government debt. Yet you might have had 18% interest rates, but you also had one family income providing for two people and an average family size of 5. Now people are like, I don't know if I can afford kids. So I think we end up in these big arguments trying to be like, who's right, who's wrong? And it's like, no one is. It's what I've learned is that an economy and money, it's constantly an experiment. And even, you know, a government will change settings, and really that's an experiment. But we think that they know what they're doing. Like a lot of these people don't, you know? And it's the same if you think about it. If someone wins lotto, their life completely changes. Well, now they have a $30 million experiment. What am I going to do with this? Do I give some away? Do I buy that batch? They buy the batch. I hate a batch. I never wanted a batch. Like now I've got someone broke into it. That's annoying. Oh, people want to borrow it off me. And they're like, why should I have to pay because it was free? Oh, I hate that batch now. I'm going to sell it. You know, so money is always an experiment, but I think we think, that it's like this one way or the other.
Yeah. Talking about rich people, like what's one of the biggest myths that you've found about rich or kind of wealthy people?
I think that the perception or the teaching that we get in New Zealand is that like rich people are, they're assholes. They stand on people. Greedy. Man, I've met so many wealthy people that are so willing to help you, and I reckon it's one hack. That if we all just were a bit more open-minded, if you're curious from somebody who's done really well, Kiwis love to teach you. Awesome. I'll drop them a line and say, hey, I really respect what you've done. Really admire this. I've gone for lunch with rich listers, people who have gone beyond me in the accounting industry and done millions of, and they give you like free mentorship or, oh, hey, over breakfast, or what about this? Or I'm thinking about this, or do you ever struggle with this? Or what about this in your career? Bang, bang, bang. They're just like, here's all the info. And I think we think that these rich people, they get rich and then they roll around and they're like,
you're all losers. You don't know anything.
Yeah, but we really, if you go to somebody who's successful or rich or wealthy or whatever term you want to use and say, I would love to learn something from you. Half of them are itching to tell you their story. It's different to hey, can I catch up with you and buy you a coffee and waste an hour of your time? You got to approach them differently. But a lot of them are willing to help, and a lot of them self-tax themselves. So we talk about, they don't pay their fair share. Well, when you spend time with wealthy people, I went to a lunch one time with some wealthy people in New Zealand, and again, I don't know these people, I didn't grow up around them. I got invited to this lunch. I overhear they're having this conversation about how they donated, blah 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 was here, a famous New Zealander last week for lunch, and they left with a $50,000 check for their charity. I'm like, 50 G's, bro, what the hell? I'm like, A, who has a checkbook still, and B, who's giving 50 grand to someone? I'm like, how does that? So I'm like, what do they know that I don't know? So I'm really curious about the stuff rather than sort of the media said that rich people don't pay their fair share. Must be. So a lot of these people, they actually give a lot of their time, give a lot of their wealth, give a lot of income. But then people will say to you, well, they've got the means to do it. Of course they should. Well, great, but how does that help you in your life? The example I use is Graham Hart gave a lot of money to the Starship Hospital.
What would you say to someone who wanted to kind of get ahead? Because I feel like the feeling out there is we're kind of falling behind.
Yeah.
If you might not be, but there's just this kind of feeling out there that everyone's, I'm losing ground.
Yeah. I mean, I could take an hour to answer that, but I'll try not to. Okay, to start with, you've got to know where a head is and what that means. So then what's your reference point? But you're living in a society that you're getting marketed to more than ever, telling you, give me your money. And if you don't have the money, all good. Use buy now, pay later, use credit, just like I was doing back in the day. Yep. But credit evolves, and there'll always be another thing. Buy now, pay later might die, but by then it'll be you can get your salary paid to you on the Monday when you normally get paid on a Thursday. It'll evolve, and there'll always be someone making $1 out of people needing money faster or needing the thing faster. So you live in a consumerism world. So accept that and understand that. Try and figure out why do I need to spend this money? Why did I need to run up 13 grand with the credit card debt? Why couldn't I sit home and do nothing and chill and start investing? Why did I sell all those stocks? So you got to try and figure these things out of what's your sort of personality around money. There's money personality tests that you can do.
Yep.
But have the belief that things can change. There's too much commentary in this country that you're done. It's screwed, it's over, we're on the way down, you're done. But man, I have taught tens of thousands of Kiwis. I just needed one push in the right direction, one seed to then go, I could do that. If it's good enough for them, why not for me? But there's got to be a hunger for that to start with, and I think it comes from a desire of something more. It could be paying your mortgage off faster, getting out of debt, not not going to Monday work on Monday thinking about money, providing for your family, whatever. You've got to have strong reasons, and then you've got to look at, okay, where's my money at the moment? What's coming in? What's going out? What's my gap? If more's going out than it's coming in, warning sign. Okay, money talks. There's different financial advisors around the country that'd be willing to help you. Or it might just be okay, I need to try and clear my debt and get rid of buy now, pay later. Can I sell some stuff around the house? Can I make some extra money? I believe everybody's got 10 grand in them, easy, in 12 months. It's people need to understand there's just hundreds of billions of dollars sitting with older people. They're getting older, they want more convenience, they've got the wealth, but instead we're I'll do a bit more work at my job. Sell something to the wealthy people. Like they've got the money, time,
true.
convenience, help,
True.
solutions, security, whatever it is. Like they want some help. And like, travel agents do this. Okay, well, let's market to the baby boomers. They've got the wealth, they're still traveling and they don't want to organize it themselves. Great, they'll pay us a fee to do it. We're all like, we can all learn to be more entrepreneurial. And then that helps you to increase your income. Maybe you don't want to do that. Okay, like that's tough if you don't want to, but then you have to accept that your money coming in is limited. And then
relatively fixed.
How do you manage that to the best of your ability?
Yeah, nice. What's the best piece of financial advice you've received?
I worked with a mentor at one stage, and I would have been like mid-20s, and I was really lucky through the Chartered Accounting Association, and I was talking about like investing in companies and main freight and all of this stuff, and he was like, mate, like, why are you talking about investing in them for a 5% dividend return or whatever? Why don't you invest in yourself into your business? And I was sort of like, man, what's he on about? But I'm like, he's driving a Porsche. I'm driving a Lexus IS200 that like really could break at any minute here. I'm like, what the hell does he mean, man? But now it's like self-help and investing in yourself has been like swallowed by the kind of health movement and kind of like Instagram reels and stuff. All it means is like, what are you good at? Like go all in on that. Richie, kicking goals. Why is Richie the kicker and not someone else? Because he's better. Because he probably did heaps of practice. Same with Dan Carter. Like shock. Dan didn't just roll up and go like, oh, I can do that. Like he got really good at it, So this country is like, oh, you're not very good at this. You should get better at it. Bullshit. Like my life got better when someone said to me, you're good at these things. Much like the person was like, he should be doing more speaking. Like I ignored that for years. What are you good at? What's your skill set? Where can you add value? Lean into those things.
Awesome.
You'll go further. You'll have more energy to do it. Good things will happen. Opportunities will come and your life will change and everyone will be like, how did that happen? They're still focusing on like, oh, I'm trying to get better at the thing that I've been told I'm not very good at. Like, no, don't do that. Like invest in yourself and life is long, and you don't need to make the $1 million in 2 years. I thought that we'd do it quickly and whatnot.
You don't have to build a unicorn and...
No, so just small steps and small consistent steps and you can completely change your life and get to somewhere that I often say, there's someone who's ahead of you, but you're also ahead of where you once thought you could be.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. You've done it before. You've got ahead of where you once thought you could be. So you can do it again. So we reset it and go, where do we want to get to? Okay, well, like, who do we need to become to be that person?
True.
Like Luke, who's like focused on main freight and their dividends and reading their annual report and stuff, like he's not actually going and making any money to invest into main freight. So pull your head in and
because you need the money to invest.
100%. So this dude was kind of like, what are you doing, man? Like get to work and focus on your stuff and the money will come and then you can invest into main freight.
That's cool. Hey, this is my final question that I ask all my guests. What does wealth mean to you?
Fulfillment, bro. So like having choices and options and being able to say no to things you don't want to do. So, there's I always butcher this, but I saw this saying the other day and it's like a wealthy man has 100 problems and a sick man has one, and I think health is wealth. If you're not looking after yourself, then it doesn't matter how many assets you've got, what your net worth is and what your income is and how much tax you pay. None of that matters. You're lying there being like, I want to feel better. So I think, wealth is like not being controlled by money and getting out of that a little bit and being like, okay, I can make more, I could spend more this month than last month, but it doesn't impact me. I can still show up and I'm not like thinking about it. And you sort of, pull yourself away. But I think a lot of people think that wealth is like more assets and more, and then I got the house, now I need the batch, but we need a boat for that as well, and the neighbours have got that car, we should get that too. And next thing it's like, okay, you got all these assets, but there's also a saying like what you own owns you. So you have to be real careful of what you own.
Interesting.
Because it can suck you, So you think we live in a world where it's like keep stacking up more stuff.
Yes.
But I've seen heaps of wealthy people, even I had a meeting with one who's like tens of millions, and he's like, mate, kids moved out of the house, hate this house, feels lonely, got a mild depression, like I'm missing them, we're going to put it on the market and sell it. You would look at that and you're like, man, that's the goal, that's the dream. He's like, mate, we can't get rid of this thing soon enough.
Wow.
Interesting, eh?
That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm very lucky, bro, with the people I get to speak to.
Yeah, you get a lot of insights, perspectives.
Yeah.
To learn from it.
Because like I would be like, most people would have that house on their vision board, and then he's like, mate, like we don't want this thing, eh? Like Yeah, we're downsizing, we're selling, we want to be closer to the kids and stuff. Like, we thought this would bring us happiness. It doesn't. It's got too many bedrooms. There's too many outgoings. Someone else can have it. I'm like, whoa, man. Okay, there's a lesson there. So
maybe that's not the top of the mountain, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes you get there and you're like, oh.
Yeah, I think feeling content, man. Like, I've never... The wealthiest I feel, bro, is like when I go to something and I'm like, okay, I can get the check for this, or I can, like, I'm not having to log into my internet banking to be like, can I afford these three Woodstocks at the Warriors? Like, I better transfer some money from my savings. I'm like,
so good. I
hope so.
Luke, thank you so much for coming on Fresh Money. You've dropped so many pearls of wisdom, so much gold there that we can all learn from, man. So thank you. Bless you, your family, First Advisory, and of course, keep the change.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate it.